So we went from Volt Boy Tintin to Sakamoto, now One Punch Man, now with hair and OCD and a villain. You know you're reading a villain-focused chapter when the atmosphere completely changes its tone that almost feels like a new series. Unlike the introduction of the Big Three, the chapter is filled with sinister vibe, interesting development of the League of Villains, and an impressive showcase of a new villain, or at least properly introduced, the so-called Yakuza overhaul. The whole set of tone changes from the last couple of chapters, and when it changes, it really changes. It's as if the art style changes with it. That said, the way on how it was set up is compelling. It starts with a normal tone, with Overhaul feeling ill because of the dusty location. It gives you an impression of his OCD characteristic, which on one hand, it could have been done in a humor tone, yet the mangaka went an extra mile with it. The background behind him is rather interesting. It exploits more depth of his universe with the evil organizations running the underworld, and he's among them. The young leader of the 8 precepts of depth is basically this universe version of how gangs work, which is cool to incorporate that in a different style. That all went to decline due to All Might taking them down during the rise, so it's left to Overhaul on the move, or how they interpreted the endangered species. The tone becomes darker once Overhaul begins to talk about why he's out there, and it wasn't because of All Might's disappearance. Instead, it's All for One's disappearance that caused him to take action, which is a different type of reaction. If you recall the last chapter with all villains focus, everyone is taking action because of All Might's disappearance. However, Overhaul is more concerned on the decline. Once he asks on who will be the successor, in which Shigaraki replies to be him, this is where we learn that Overhaul is much more thoughtful than he looks. A smart villain is always needed in an organization, and Overhaul may be that guy. He has every right to not go with the League of Villains with his current position. As good it is to gather villains, they have no plan going forward. It only leads to easy defeat. His proof is the recap of the villains that they already lost before, so he's definitely not wrong. What makes it intense is when Overhaul begins to explain his plan, yet at the same time you can sense that Shigaraki is growing frustrated with his attitude. Overhaul insisting to have them to join him instead is what takes the league to decline and take him out. Overhaul gives me a solid impression of his character, and it's refreshing to see a villain who is more careful and thoughtful. When it comes to his use in the battle, that's where my interest increased a lot. Magni goes and attacks Overhaul, but he responds back with a simple poke. Before the next page, I thought it was going to be a normal yet deadly damage. Instead, I got an instant kill that it may be the most gruesome showcase of a quirk of the series so far. Blowing up the entire upper body shocked me. I actually thought he can deactivate other quirks, but thanks to a good friend at Tumblr, I didn't see a shot fire at Compress's shoulder. It's interesting to know that Overhaul has his gang with a specialized gun. It got me curious on what sort of weaponry he has in store. It got intense really fast, only to have his gang to show up. As I mentioned before, the tone of this chapter is different from a daily routine of heroes, so naturally it's darker and intriguing. The presentation captures it so good, with Overhaul being a major threat even to other villains. OCD aspect only makes him worse, since something that irks him will lead him to attack and destroy a part instantly. A lot of intense effective panels add more layers to its nature. I don't know if this is the most gruesome moment yet, but it was pretty dark to see the reactions, like urge to stab them and have the body fall down in a quiet manner just adds a lot. I guess flashback equals death still carries on within the series. I guess that is the tradition. By the end, it left 2 interesting notes. Overhaul hand over his card to Shigaraki, which I think he would take it. If there's something to learn, is to be thoughtful and coordinated. It's actually neat to see a villain in development on panel, so you get the idea where they're coming from. The other one is All Might bringing Mirio and Deku for a talk. One would think is about the successor, which I am thinking that's what's going to take place. So both sides have some interesting aspect coming through. As it is more of a proper introduction of Overhaul, it left me with a strong impression as well as his villain side of the story. It grasped my interest to see them in action more than ever. It also builds more around the universe to give us the interest that we need. It's a really good chapter that while heroes are progressing, villains aren't far apart. I'm giving this chapter an 8. Really good chapter focusing on the villains. Somehow I really like these villains more than the heroes at times, but then again I find myself in the right balance the more I think over for them. They have different tones, but it really works well with this kind of series, so you can see the dark side and the light side in a more explicit way, but you're really intrigued to see how they're gonna progress and how they leads to go against each other. What are your thoughts of this chapter? Did you find Overhaul impressive character? Did you find him to be a real leadership? I find him to be more understanding than Shigaraki, but then again he is a successor and he's still new to this whole ground, so it makes sense for him to progress. This is one compelling way to actually see a progress of a villain. This one is actually more of a different approach and a different focus and a refreshing feeling. My thoughts are told, don't let yours on hold. Leave a comment below. Thank you for watching this video. If you like this and want more of this, subscribe to my channel and my world will be yours to stay. Until next time, take care.